Hello and welcome to Promenade Française, and welcome to the longest and most intensive beginner review of all time. We've been doing this review for literally for 3 weeks or 4 weeks. I have to say that not everyone agrees with my approach. Some people, they believe that when you start to learn a language, you need to use something called comprehensible input. Comprehensible input means that you try to find some words, some paragraphs, some sentences, some material that is close to your level of the French language. The thing is that I began this process as an ultimate beginner, and I felt like probably the most important thing was to focus on pronunciation, learning to read and write. I mean, because how are you supposed to do comprehensible input if you can't even read? Anyways, it just took me a long time to really start, as you can tell, because I've given you my entire experience learning French on this YouTube channel. You can go back 60 videos and see okay, well, how much progress have we really made? I think we made a lot of progress. Specifically in the review, I've tried to create some more tools that you can use in order to practice the sentence structures, to understand the grammar. And I really feel like that grammar foundation is important before we start moving forward. I think some people feel like the grammar foundation isn't that important. For example, when I was learning Chinese, I thought grammar might be important, but I wasn't sure because I'd never really focused on grammar before. It was my first second language. And in Chinese, there's no grammar. But then I went into Russian, and it's one of the most grammar-heavy languages in the world. If you don't learn how to really focus on grammar, then you are kind of stuck, because basically every noun can be changed in 24 different ways. And when you have to make some change to the ending of a word in 24 different ways, then you have to know the rule, and you also have to know the pattern, and you have to learn how that word changes in all the different situations. And sometimes you have exceptions. And I just really felt like Russian still to this day, it's very, very challenging for me. And I didn't want to have the same experience learning French. I wanted to, from the very beginning, make sure that I have a solid foundation of how the basic grammar works. And then I would be able to move forward on firm footing. And that's what this channel is all about. Especially if you go to my blog on promenadefrancaise.com, you're going to see that there is an article called Major Milestone Time to Review Part 1. And that's what we've been doing. So you go into that blog article. At the very top of the article, you're going to see a table of contents. Click the 5th section. It's called Giving and Sending. And that is where we currently are in our little review here. And man, it's just been such a challenge to get all of the materials made for this section. But that's the whole point of doing the channel, is to be able to create material. And that material helps me to learn the French language. So, voila. All right, so you can see in giving and sending, it says practice using indirect object pronouns with common verbs that involve an action directed toward another person. So what distinguishes this section with the last section? In the last section, we were using verbs that use a direct object. For example, I see what? I see a school. I see a police officer. And that's where we learned these 35 nouns, because we needed things that we could see directly. And then we found out, well, you can also use an object pronoun. For example, in French, we always put these le and la in front of a word, and that also tells us what the pronoun is. And it's important for us to know this because in English, this concept doesn't really exist. If I say, I see a school, then we don't say I see him, we say I see it. And so in English, we don't change the to it, and we don't change the to him or her. But in French, that's what they do. I see the school, I see him. École, la école, le école, la école, no. So, and that's the thing about French is right away at the very beginning, I'm just learning and it's like, hey, you need to remember the difference between masculine and feminine. It's very important because we're going to use that le and la as the object pronoun when the verb uses a direct object. And okay, so then I had a little chat with a French tutor and they were like, well, I don't really like to focus on grammar. And it's like, so the thing is that I understand that if you don't like to focus on grammar, that means that I cannot make it as far. Like, because that's what happened to me in Russian, is that I hit that ceiling and like I'm having a hard time developing the habits now to reverse the bad habits which I created by learning like with this concept of just talk, just read. No, like develop some real grammar learning habits. So in the fifth section here, we're using verbs where we need to change it to an indirect object. All right, now what's our example? As you can see, if you go down to part 1, it says review vocabulary and grammar. So you can click that review section. And the thing is that I already made a video about this. I always forget which one it is. And you can either print or you can write down that table. And that table, it's going to help you to flush out all of the possibilities for how you would use an indirect object. We begin the lesson. So if you just click that little review button, I'll just introduce it to you briefly. If you click the button, then you're going to see that, okay, so it says, Je te souhaite une merveilleuse journée. Je suis ravi de te voir. This is a page out of the book that I wrote with the help of a tutor and ChatGPT in order to learn greetings in French. And now you can see, je te souhaite, je te. So it's I wish you. And then the other one says, je suis ravi de te voir. And that's why we're trying to figure out these indirect objects. Why does it say te? In English, I would say I wish you, but here it's like they have a different word for you. Also, if you scroll down, let's go past the first section, past the second section. It says when the verb takes an indirect object and a direct object. So this is on page 9. And this is where you can go to that video and I explain it very clearly. On the left side, we want to know what is the thing being wished. In the other example, I see you, I see the school, I see like what am I looking at directly? That's called a direct object. But in this case, the direct object is the thing which is being wished, right? The thing, it says the thing that is being wished is the direct object. And in this case, it's a wonderful day. So you can go down on the left column. It's like, okay, so what do I wish? Qu'est-ce que je souhaite? What do you wish? Qu'est-ce que tu souhaites? Qu'est-ce qu'il souhaite? What does he wish? And it's always the same answer. It's the direct object. And the purpose of this exercise is to help you to learn the indirect object because there's a difference. Basically the difference is this thing when we say him and her, we say lui. So like if I see you or if I see him, if it's a direct object, then it is, well, let's see, if you scroll back up, then we can just figure it out. So it's got meticulously, la. So le and la is a direct object. And then for plural, it's les. And then for an indirect object, it is lui for him and her. And it is leur. All right, so that is this section about, I would recommend just going through that exercise again. And also, like I said, going through that practice video. And then I'll meet you in the next video where we're going to learn some new words.